Okay. I hope you guys can hear me and you guys can also view my screen. Can someone give me a confirmation on that?
Yes, it's perfect.
Cool. Thank you. Um, all right. So before we begin, I would like to thank everyone for taking the time out. Let me also hit the recording button. Oh, it's already recording. Getting recorded. Cool. So let me start by thanking everyone for taking the time out to join this session. And I hope that it will be informative for you and you will learn something today. So let me begin by giving you a brief about this session so that we are on the same page. So to start, my name is Vikas, and I'll be your uh, you know uh, guide, mentor, trainer, or whatever you want to call me. And I will be talking about VMware technology. Okay. So let me first tell you what's in it for you. I mean, why you should be attending this session. Okay. So here we are going to talk about a VMware technology. Okay, that's basically virtualization in a nutshell. This is what we will be talking about. Now, there are many virtualization platforms which are available in the market. However, um, hands down, you would see that VMware is the one which has the lead on every other one. Okay, so if you talk about client operating systems, so if you buy any laptop or any desktop, there are very high chances that you would have you would have Windows as your client operating system on it. Okay, and similarly, when you talk about virtualization in an environment, if you are running virtualization or if you plan to run virtualization, VMware is basically the default choice, that you would like to go ahead with. Okay. So VMware has a huge, dominance when it comes to the virtualization arena. It has a lot of functionalities. It's way better than all the other, vendors out there. I am not saying that, their product is not that great or, they are, giving a very horrible product. No, I'm absolutely not saying that. All that I'm saying is that, VMware has an edge. VMware definitely has an advantage as compared to other vendors out there. Okay. Now, this training that I provide, there is basically no PPT. I'm not a PPT guy. Okay, I prefer to draw and prefer to explain you that how things work instead of having a PPT and then reading from the PPT and then talking about it. I'm not that PPT guy, so I would be going through all on this blackboard, and basically with colors I will keep explaining you that how things work. Now, my humble request while I'm going through, if there's anything that you do not understand, if there's any term that you are not sure that what it means, please feel free to unmute yourself and feel free to ask. Okay. The intention is basically that you should understand that what we are discussing over here. If you don't understand, then there is no point in having this session. So please, if you have any questions at any point of time, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. You do not have to wait for me to complete. You can interrupt me while I'm going through. I'll be more than happy to take your questions along the way. Okay. Now let me talk about a little bit of about myself. Okay. So I mentioned my name is Vikas, and I have been working since 2005. I don't know how many years that this is now. I think 18, 19, something years. And I got introduced to VMware technology in 2010. So I am working on VMware technology since 2010. And it's not like, I have read VMware or I have learned, how things work, and then basically I'm teaching you. No, I mean, that's not what I've done. I basically started working in 2010 on VMware technology. And still today, I work on VMware technology. So if you ask me that if I can teach you Nutanix or Hyper-V or any other product, it'll be a big no because I don't know those products. I have been working on VMware technology as my primary domain for I don't know, like close to about 15 years now. And still today, I mean, all my EMIs and school kids fees and everything I pay because of VMware virtualization technology. So that's the only technology that I know in and out. Yeah. So I'll be more than happy to tell you that how VMware as a technology can benefit you. And there are a lot of changes. I'll basically keep telling you that what the changes, what the challenges were earlier, and now they have how they have rectified. Okay, so that's in a nutshell about me. I started basically teaching in 2015. Okay, so yours is not the first batch that I'll be teaching. I've taught close to about 800 plus folks. Okay. Now, I am not a certified instructor. So when you are teaching VMware, like when you go and take an official class, someone who teaches you is a VCI, VMware certified instructor. I am not a VCI because you have to be aligned to an authorized institute, before you can get that certification. If you're not aligned to an institute, you would not be able to get this certification VCI. I mean, that's something that's very specific to VMware. But yes, I am very confident that I would be able to tell you more than a VCI. So I have real hands-on experience. I know that how environments get designed, and what you would do in terms of a scenario, how would you approach. So I've sorry, you have okay, no problem. So yeah, I'll be able to share a lot of great information with you. So yeah, don't worry about it. Yours is not the first batch whom I'm teaching, and this is no experiment going on that I'm teaching you for the first time. So let me try out my teaching skills. That's absolutely not the way. Okay. Now that's in a nutshell about me as a professional. Now I would like to talk about that what we will be covering. I mean, that's the first thing that we should be talking about. That what are we going to cover? So if I talk about what we will be covering over here, let me quickly take you to a website and show you over there that what we will be talking about. So I will basically be talking about this course. Go for it, Usam. Um, you had okay, no problem.
Yes, yes. Just would we request to just have a record of this for this session to just let us focus because now everything I have to write it down, but I will be appreciate
This
if there
is
is a
getting
record session
this
recorded.
is this is already getting recorded.
Ah,
So
okay, okay,
you would
thanks.
see
Will
a
be sent to
record
us.
button. Absolutely, no problem. I think it'll get uploaded on the YouTube. If you see that, there's a
Okay.
red button, flashing red
Mhm, mhm,
button that you would see
mhm.
in the middle of your Zoom panel,
Okay.
it's
Thank
getting
you. I
recorded.
apologize
No
for taking
problem.
the time.
No problem. No problem. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you for joining.
No, so
Okay.
because
Huh? Go for it.
so are we getting that link recorded link, correct?
Yes, we will be sharing the recording with you. No problem.
Can you hear me?
Sorry.
Yeah. So, okay, thank you. Great, great helpful. Can repeatedly
Your
make
your voice is breaking. Your network is not
it
constant. It is going up and down. I'm losing you. Yeah, if I heard you correctly, the recording, yeah, we will be sharing the link with you on the WhatsApp. Don't worry about it.
that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now VMware has basically a lot of products. Okay. And if you would see very carefully over here, you would see VMware by Broadcom. Recently, the merger has taken place wherein VMware has been acquired by the company Broadcom. So that is why you would always find now VMware by Broadcom written over here. This is because of the acquisition, the merger that happened recently. Okay. And VMware as a company, if I talk about, they have a lot of products. Okay. The product that we will be focusing on is related to data center virtualization. So the product related to data center virtualization is basically called VMware vSphere. Okay. Now, in VMware vSphere, they have got multiple courses. They have a course on troubleshooting. They have a course on install, configure, manage, advanced courses, and they've got a lot of different courses to enhance your knowledge. They also have a course on security. So we are basically covering the course, which is install, configure, manage, and this is on version 8. So version 8 is the latest version, that VMware has rolled out, and this is the one that we will be talking about. Sure, I'll share the URL on the chat, but if I can see the chat. Okay, yeah, here it is. Yeah, it's right in front of me, and I'm looking for the chat. So here is the URL that I was referring to. So if this URL does not come up on Firefox, just try it on an incognito window. Sometimes because of cache or something that you might have issues opening the URL. So try it in a different browser, it should come up. Yeah. So what we will be talking about is whatever they have mentioned in this course. If you would like to learn vSphere, install, configure, manage, then VMware has basically given you an outline that these are the things that you should know about. Now, let me tell you that we are covering whatever is mentioned over here. So uh, there is no questions of leaving out any topic. There is no question of leaving out any point. Okay. So be sure about it. I am going to cover anything and everything which is mentioned over here. Also, I will be covering few things which are not mentioned over here. Few things I believe are important for you to understand when you are managing your environment. I would be even covering those as well. So whatever is written over here, this is by default will be covered. And things which are not mentioned over here would also be, a few things, which we will be covering. Okay. Now here are a couple of the prerequisites. So basically they say that, you should have basically some knowledge about the operating systems and some basic understanding about, storage and networking. So this is all that we are looking for. So I believe everyone, would come from, a background wherein they have some knowledge about the operating system and some knowledge about, how networking works or infrastructure or as an enterprise organization. That's all that we are looking at, nothing major. Apart from that, we will be talking about these three core concepts. So if you see over here, these are the three products that, we will be talking about over here. What an ESXi is, what a vCenter is, and what a vSphere is. We will be covering all those things, in our training. Okay. So the URL that I shared with you that you see over here, basically it's a VMware official training curriculum that, they have mentioned. So we will be covering all of these things over here. Okay. Now, we know what we are going to talk about. Okay. Let's answer the question that after the training, would you be able to give any certification? Like, for example, if I talk about Linux, CCNA, or Microsoft, or so many, certifications are out there. After attending the training, people generally go for a certification. Now, this is slightly different with VMware. Why is it different? Let me answer that question for you. Okay. The first thing is, let me take you to the website of VMware. So let's go to a website, vmware.com. So when you go to the website vmware.com, you see the first banner over here, VMware joins Broadcom. So Broadcom is a huge player. It's a 350 billion, company in revenue. The 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 worth of Broadcom, if you basically look at it, is close to about 350 billion. A huge organization. They basically they deal into a lot of details, and they have a lot of different products, from Broadcom. However, they have now acquired VMware. So yeah, VMware is part of Broadcom now. Now, if you look at the products of VMware, so VMware as a product can basically it's available everywhere. Okay, so if I talk about the product, at the line, they have close to about 179 products. That's huge. When VMware started off, they basically had only two products, and now they have 179 products. VMware as a company has a footprint in everywhere. I mean, you talk about any technology, you would find a VMware solution for you. So basically, VMware is a one-stop shop. Whatever you want, they would be able to give you. So for example, if you want to have desktop virtualization, data center virtualization, you want to have, anywhere workspace, you want your users to be able to log in anywhere. They should be able to manage their work anywhere. You want to manage your cloud. For example, if you have a lot of different clouds and you want to manage them, this is something that you can do. You want to do testing, you have a desktop hypervisor. You want to run Kubernetes, they have a platform for you, Tanzu, you can do that. You want to run it on the cloud, you want to run on telco, you want to run as an enterprise organization. They have all the options for you, right from the deployment, SD-WAN. If you want to run telecom 5G or something, you can absolutely do it. So they are everywhere for you. If you want to set up a DR, they can do that for you. You talk about networking and security. So you want to set up a software defined networking because that's what is the new big thing. They can definitely do that for you. They have their own advanced load balancer as well. They have got their um, options for malware protection and distributed firewall. And they can basically do anything for you. You talk about endpoint security, they have got Carbon Black for you. So name a solution that you're looking for, and VMware will have an answer for you. So VMware has basically grown leaps and bounces, and they have actually gone ahead and they have a footprint basically everywhere now. If you want to run VMware on the cloud, VMware traditionally has been an on-premises product. So what you do is you basically build your own data center. So let's say you build your own data center, and in your data center you will deploy a lot of servers, and then on these servers you run VMware software. This is what you will do. Okay. So if you have your own on-premises data center, you can do that. Also, you can run VMware on the cloud. So you see these options over here. You can run VMware on Alibaba, Azure, Google, IBM, Oracle, AWS. These are all the major cloud providers that you will find in the world. And if you want to host your VMware service on the cloud, you can absolutely do that. Okay. Now, few folks might have a thought process, or few folks might have a query in their mind: is VMware relevant? Why should I be learning the technology? Okay. Now let me give you a few compelling reasons that why you should be learning VMware. Okay. First, it's a one-stop shop. VMware can give you solutions, offerings which are truly enterprise class, and you can get it all from VMware. Okay. Second, VMware is not available only at the on-prem, it is also available in the cloud. Okay, so if you want to have a hybrid environment, so you can absolutely have a hybrid environment. You could have something at the on-prem, you could have something on the cloud, you can merge both the environments and you can run. You take any bank in the world, okay, you talk about any pharmaceutical company in the world, nobody would run 100% on the cloud. I mean, depending on your region, wherever you are, I am based in India. So in India, we have got multiple banks, and there is a bank, if you have not, I'm not sure if you have heard about it. It's called SBI. It's called State Bank of India, the largest bank in India. If you talk about it, numbers on anything, they are VMware customers. They run on VMware. And if you talk to anyone, about SBI, I mean, in India, everyone knows SBI. You don't have to, tell them that, there is a bank called State Bank of India. Do you know about it? Everyone, knows about SBI. It's a household name in India. And that such a huge entity. They have got thousands of branches, every village, every town, every city, you would find SBI. And they are, running with VMware. They have partnered with VMware. They basically trust the technology of VMware. Similarly, is the case with so many customers out there. If you look at the logos of VMware customers which are out there, from pharmaceutical giants, from banks, from 5G, from telcos, VMware has a footprint anywhere. I mean, you talk about airlines and whatnot. I mean, you would find so many VMware customers, are there. So VMware as a company, it has a lot of options for you in terms of the solution that you're looking for. They give you a lot of flexibility that you know where you should be running. And not everyone would go 100% on the cloud. You talk to any bank in whichever country you are, and if you have an IT folk, that you are acquainted with in bank, ask them that would you be running 100% on the cloud? They would say no, a big no. Nobody would run 100% on the cloud. They would always maintain some footprint on the on-prem, and they would have something on the cloud as well. Okay. And the last thing is, so VMware as a company is not dying. If you probably just go to Google and if you type VMware revenue, for example, a very basic one, okay, and you basically come down, you would see a link over here, company's market cap, and you open this URL of VMware revenue. Okay. Now, if you look at it, this company, when it started off in 2005, they have a revenue of 0.39 billion. Okay. And now with time, they have basically, grown to 13 billion in revenue. Okay. My simple question is, if VMware is not relevant, if VMware as a company is dying or it's about to fade off, why would the revenue grow? If any company is dying, their revenues will tank, their stocks will tank. I mean, that's the first thing that's going to happen. Okay. If a company is not tanking, if their revenues are not tanking, that means that company is here to stay. Okay. So VMware as a technology is absolutely here to stay. If you have this notion that VMware as a technology is going to go away and there is no point in learning, my friend, you are mistaken. Okay. uh, VMware is definitely here to stay. It's not like, I do VMware day in and day out. That's the reason I'm saying you. No, I mean, we talk about so many other things which are out there, but VMware as a technology is here to stay. You talk about cloud. So that does that mean that Cisco is going to go away? Cisco is going to die as a company? No, of course not. Cisco is not going to die. I mean, Cisco is a huge giant. If you think that Cisco is going to die because cloud is over here, that's not going to happen. Okay. Cisco as a company has revolved itself a lot. They have revolutionized a lot of things, but they are here to stay. If you think that Cisco is going to die, you are mistaken. Okay. All right. So we understand that, what we're going to cover. We understand, from the footprint of VMware, what they have to offer. Now let me talk about from the certification point of view. Okay. Now, VMware as a company has a lot of certifications, that they provide you because they've got different tracks. So if I show you the products that they have, if you would see over here that, they have a product in, basically everything, desktop, cloud, networking, security, so they have a lot of certifications for you. So if you talk about VMware certifications, you would find over here that VMware has a lot of different certifications, but the one that we are targeting is basically data center virtualization. Okay. Now here very clearly it says that if you do not have any VCP certification, okay, it's if you do not have any VCP certification, then what they say is that first it's recommended. Look at the word. The word is recommended. Gain some experience, get some knowledge on VMware. That's the first thing that they are saying. Okay. What is the second thing? Required. It's not recommended over here. It's required. You have to attend one of the following trainings. Now, when they say trainings, they are saying official trainings that you have to attend. Okay, they have a huge list that you can attend any of the trainings that you feel like. But this is the official training that you will have to attend. Now, depending on the region, part of the world, wherever you are, prices will depend accordingly. If you are in Germany, if you are in Europe, you would have to pay at least 2,500 euros, to get this training. If you are in India, you would have to pay at least 70,000 Indian rupees to get this training. So depending on, wherever you are, the prices will depend. You cannot get that same price, in India, in Germany. So for example, if you do the currency conversion, you would find that, if you do certification in India, it will be a lot cheaper for you if you're earning in euros or if you're earning in a different currency. But that's not going to happen because depending on whichever region you are, you will have to pay the price accordingly. So these trainings that VMware is basically telling you, and they have this word required, it's not an optional training. This is absolute a mandate training that you have to take. When you take this training, this is a 5-day class that you will have to go through. When you take this 5-day of required class, then you can basically appear for the examination. So VMware has a strict rule that for the first time, if you are going ahead with their certification, you have to take this training. Okay. So this is an absolute requirement. So the training that you are taking over here, the session that we are over here right now, this is for your information. With this training, you would not be able to do the official certification. I'll be honest and truthful with you. You would not be able to do the certification. Okay. This certification you can only do if you get enrolled in an authorized institute and if you are willing to pay thousands of, dirhams, euros, whichever, country you are in, then only you will be able to do the certification. Now, this is a global fact. Everyone knows about it that, to do a VMware certification, you have to take an official training. For that, you have to pay a lot of amount. Okay. So people, or I should say all the companies are very flexible. Even though if you do not have the certification, they are pretty okay with it till the time you have the required knowledge. Okay. You can always tell them that, I did not have that kind of money to go for the certification. Neither my company sponsored me, to go for the certification. Like when I was doing all these certifications, my company sponsored me. They were the ones who were paying me, who were paying for me in terms of my training. Okay. So if you do not have a sponsor as your company, that's okay. Take the knowledge and, whichever is your next company, when you give the interview, give them technical answers. And I'm very sure that, after you get hired over there, they will basically, pay for your training. So that's no concern. Okay. So this is about from the certification point of view. So here we would be sharing knowledge with you, but you would not be able to go for the certification. Okay. Now, with any technology, of course, you would like to do practice. You would like to, get your hands dirty. You would like to play around that, how do you learn a technology? So of course, to learn any technology, you need to do a lot of practice. Now, how do you practice VMware? Okay. So to practice VMware, we are basically giving you labs. So our institute will basically provide you labs. You do not have to worry about getting a desktop for yourself or wherein you can do a practice. We would provide you over the network you can connect. Everyone has now, there is a good broadband of 100, 200 Mbps. So you can basically connect and then you would be able to do practice on our labs. This is what uh, you can do. Okay. Now in our labs, you will get 64 GB of RAM. You will get a good processor. Okay, this is what we will provide you. And we are giving you SSDs in our environment. So these are the three prerequisites, 64 GB or higher in terms of RAM, a good processor, at least 8 cores or higher, or maybe 12 cores, a preferred one. Okay, and a good SSD of close to about 500 GB. Okay. So all these lab configurations we will provide you. In our training, I will show you how to set up the lab. Okay. Now, we intentionally do not set up the lab for you. I mean, if we have to give you a running lab, we'll be more than happy, to write down a PowerShell script, build everything for you, and then give it for you. I mean, that's no big challenge. In nowadays, in AI, where you have, these chat GPTs and all that, building a script is no big deal. I mean, you can, tell chat GPT and they will basically, that tool will basically write down that entire script for you. So what we do over here is we don't build the setup for you. We want you to get your hands dirty. We want you to make mistakes in the lab because that is something that you will remember always. The mistake that you do, and then when you figure out what you did wrong, that is something that will stay with you. Instead of me giving you a pre-set up lab, I mean, that's not what our intention is. Our intention is that when you learn something in the training, get your hands dirty. So tomorrow, when you're in the production, you know what you have to do. You know what this will do. So that's the reason, we do not set up the lab for you. If you want, we'll be more than happy, to do it for you. But again, this is something that I would not personally recommend. So we give you bare metal desktops on how do you set up lab, how do you deploy everything, how do you test the features, anything and everything we will be talking about it. So in my lab, I would show you all the demos on how to do this, how to get this configuration going. And then, you can connect over the internet to the labs and then you can do your practice, get your hands dirty. If something is not working, we have our WhatsApp group and you can post your queries and we'll make sure that, you are able to do all your labs. So that is something that, we will be assisting you with. Okay. So this is on the labs front. Okay. Now, before I actually begin now to talk about the technology or what you're going to learn or what VMware is. Anyone has any questions, anything which is there lingering in your mind, anything that you would like to ask, go for it. Okay, now
Hi.
go for it.
I got us one small question. Uh, can we configure this all things, whatever thing which you have said, like this VMware ESXi 8 in our, let's say, desktop itself?
Absolutely, you can do that. However, you need to look at the resources. Can you tell me the
Uh,
desktop that you have, how much RAM it has?
okay, I have got a laptop and I have got 32 GB RAM, and my storage is the free space which I've got at the moment is somewhere around 300 GB.
No,
Will
that's
that be
not going
enough?
to help you. No, 32 GB RAM is not good enough. You will run into issues. Okay, I
Okay,
need
so
at least 64 GB.
64 GB is required for installing
Yes,
all these things. And how much space is required for this one?
I think 300 GB should be more than enough, but the challenge that you will hit is about the RAM. Your utilization will go high, things will not work as expected because nowadays all the enterprise products they need a lot of RAM, for them to
Uh,
work. So,
no, actually, I do have little bit knowledge of this,
mhm,
VMware.
mhm,
But last time I was trying to configure this vSphere,
mhm.
and they were asking somewhere around 500 GB of storage.
No, so um, I'll tell you how to set it up in my lab. If you feel
Okay,
that
okay,
your laptop will be able to support it, go for it. In case if
yeah,
you feel that your laptop is not responding the way it should, you can
yeah, yeah.
always try out our labs.
Sure,
So
sure, 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 sure.
that should be
Sure.
okay.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay, which kind of hardware they use for setup this VMware?
So basically what would happen is at an enterprise level, you would have an HP server, you would have a Dell server, you will have an IBM server, very powerful servers you will have. And then you will deploy the hypervisor directly on the hardware. This is what you will do in the enterprise. Over here in our lab, what we are doing is because we cannot provide you so many servers. So what we are doing is basically we have a machine on which we will be installing Windows 10 or Windows 11. Okay. And then we will be setting up our lab in VMware Workstation. Okay, it's a type 2 hypervisor. I'll be talking more about it. And in VMware Workstation, I will be setting up my lab. So basically, we are taking one machine, and on that one single box, we are basically configuring our lab. We would not be able to provide you physical boxes. This is something that if when you take the official training from VMware, then also they will give you this kind of a setup. They would not also provide you physical boxes if you take a paid training from VMware, from the authorized institute as well. So this is what we will do.
And
Hey, hi, this is this side.
might some hardware having the problem, right?
Sorry, I did not understand.
Might some hardware having the problem, some resource problem, something else.
We will get to all those points. I mean, those are the functionalities. We will cover one at a time. I don't want to, rush too quickly and tell you too many things right now. Let's
Okay.
take step by step so that everyone is on the
So,
same page. When we will
hi,
reach there, just allow me a minute, please.
is that
When we
audible?
will, yeah, just give me a minute, please.
Sure.
So when we will reach there, I will answer all your queries about, if there is a hardware failure or how we would go about it. Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I have a HP workstation with 256 GB of RAM
Mhm,
with Xeon processor. So I think is more
mhm.
than enough for the practical and 2 TB of storage as well. SSD
Absolutely.
storage.
Absolutely. You can
Okay.
absolutely try out the practicals that you're on your lab. How
Hmm.
to set it up, we will be able to show you, and you can
So,
absolutely do the practice.
okay, so I can use your labs and my personal desktop as well for the practice, right?
Absolutely, it's up to your wish. If you are comfortable with your own lab, that's okay. If you would like to use our lab, you can also do that. It's up to your
Okay.
wish. But your
So,
lab is definitely capable to handle this kind of the setup.
Okay.
okay, and apart,
In
yeah,
in
apart from that,
organizations,
yeah.
there is some production environment, development environments, and testing environments. So how it helps to segregate all these things in VMware.
We will talk about it. We will talk about everything, Riyansh, but this is too early right now, to start talking about all these things.
Okay.
I have
Okay.
to get the basics cleared, and then only I can be at that topic.
So
Okay.
during this training session, we'll do the EXI upgrades and vCenter upgrades.
Anything and everything. So, like I mentioned over here, if you look at
Mhm.
this trainings, outline which VMware has basically shared, they talk about that, how do you life cycle your environment, which is
Mhm.
basically, how to upgrade your environment. We will do anything and everything over here. I'll talk about upgrade, installation, what
Okay.
the
So,
functionalities are,
so
HA, DRS, vMotion, virtual machines, everything we will be talking
and
about.
training should be weekend only, right?
Yes, it will be on weekends only.
Okay. And what is the time? The same time which we are doing right now, 5 p.m.
Yes, yes, 5:30.
5:30. Okay.
Hi, hi, I
I
have a
need
question.
I need actually content which you are cover under this particular training.
So this is
So
the URL.
okay.
This URL that you see over here, this is the content.
Okay, the same content which is referring by the VMware you are providing the training now on the same, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Any
So
additional things you are cover apart from
yes,
this?
there are few things that I will be talking about, but I do not want to talk about them right now. But yes, there
Okay.
are few things while we are going through in the training, you will understand that, what are the things that we are covering.
Okay.
Hey, hi,
Thank
I
you.
have a question.
Go for it.
Nowadays, as you mentioned that VMware are going to stay, okay. But nowadays we are seeing that AWS or maybe Azure, they have already come into boom. The people are migrating to it. And
Mm,
as you mentioned that all the banks or pharmaceutical companies, all the other sectors,
mm,
they are not directly going on to cloud, but they
mhm,
are going on a hybrid mode. So
mhm,
at the same time, you have also shown us that VMware can work on cloud itself. So
mhm.
how is it possible that VMware works on the hardware and the AWS or the other cloud company they are providing their own instance? So how is it? I'm unable
Good
to
question.
just figure it out.
So what would basically happen is when you have to deploy VMware at the on-prem, so what you basically buy a hardware. You will buy an HP server, you will buy a Dell server, and then you will install the operating system, which is basically the ESXi, which is the hypervisor. You will install directly on the hardware. Okay? This is your on-premises setup. Now let's move to AWS. Similar things are happening on AWS. So on AWS, VMware will take a hardware from AWS. Now, AWS has got a lot of instances like i4, i7, i3, different instances that they have. And what VMware is doing is they take a bare metal box from AWS and then they install ESXi on top of it directly. The way you manage your on-premises environment, similarly, we are doing the same things on AWS environment as well. The way you manage your networking over here, similarly, VMware is managing the networking on AWS, and then they let you run VMware, platform over here.
So
So
short enough,
VMware,
you mean to say that VMware will going to take the infrastructure as a service from AWS and on that
yes,
EXSI will be installed. Okay.
yes. Now let me tell you, this solution, VMware on the cloud, started in 2017. In 2017, August, they made it live. That this solution is now GA. GA means it's generally available for everyone. I have been working on this setup since 2017 March, when it was internal, when it was not rolled out for the general public. I have been working on VMware Cloud since March 2017. I know ins and outs on how it works on the cloud, and I can tell you for weeks and weeks about it. So I'll be more than happy to give you a lot of information about it. But just to keep the conversation short over here for now, the way you manage it at the on-prem, similarly, it is getting managed on the
So
AWS
I
as well.
have one question, a small question. That
Go for it.
is your institution is providing training separately for VMware Cloud?
No, currently we are not doing that.
Okay.
Um, if you would like to take that training, we can look into because on the cloud, the charges are very high. So if I have to show you something on the cloud, I will have to basically deploy an ESXi on the cloud, and the per hour billing is very high. The per hour billing is close to about $12. So basically
Okay.
every hour I have to pay $12, to just to show you that how the lab is running. And then I
Mhm.
will have to delete it because I cannot keep it running, after the training, because night, day, weekend, weekdays, whatever it is, you are basically getting charged at $12 per hour.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it
One
becomes a
more
little
thing.
slightly expensive. That's the reason we don't do it right now. But yeah, if you are interested or if folks are interested, we can look something into this. No problem.
Okay. Thank you.
One more thing also, each
Okay. Well,
service is charges in the cloud part. So whenever we require to use then we have to pay on that.
Absolutely. In cloud,
For
everything
learning,
is
we have to
factored.
bear those charges actually.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the main, concern, that even how would we give you the lab? I mean, there is no way for us to give you the lab. If you have to give you if you want to practice, you will have to basically put your own credit card in and then do the practice and then delete it. And there are a lot of things that you will have to do. So basically running on the cloud, it is the same way as it runs at the on-prem, but because it is cloud, everything is chargeable over there. That's the only point.
Uh, uh, I have a following question to my earlier one. So
Go
as you
for it.
mentioned, VMware will going to take the infrastructure service from AWS or whatever cloud service, and they will build an EXS.
Mhm.
So my question exactly is that the customer or the client of the VMware, so how they come? They come to VMware to get the service managed, or they just buy the product and the third party vendor will going to manage it. How how's it goes?
There are different models available. So, for example, if you want to run VMware on AWS, on Google, on Alibaba, or on Azure, so here VMware is managing the service for you. Okay,
Mm,
you basically just have to log into the VMware URL. Okay, you log into the VMware URL and you basically manage the environment. Okay, it's basically as a platform as a service.
mhm,
Okay. However, if you talk about IBM, if you talk about Oracle, okay, then here they are not managing the environment for you. They basically say the way that you have been managing your on-prem environment, similarly, you would manage it in the IBM data center or in the Oracle data center. So depending on the vendor that you are choosing, depending on what kind of service that you're looking at, are you happy with PaaS or do you want the complete control, just like your on-prem? So if you want the complete control, then basically Oracle or IBM can basically give you that functionality. So it basically depends that on what kind of vendor you are choosing, what kind of level of permission that you need, what is your design setup, what is your requirement, what kind of skills you have in house. Depending on that, you will basically choose that. Of course, pricing plays a lot of big factor. That whichever vendor you choose, end of the day, you will talk about pricing. Whosoever is the cost effective one, you will go with that.
yeah.
Any other question anyone has? There is a question on the chat. Hello, sir. How to configure Cisco iOS AOL for Cisco product virtualization? Can you show us on download source of these ISOs? Sorry, buddy, I'm not trained on Cisco, so I would not be able to tell you that how a Cisco product works. Sorry for that. You might reach out to the sales team of CDP network. We do offer Cisco trainings, and then in a different training, maybe a different trainer can basically tell you more about a Cisco product. But if you want to run Cisco product on a VMware, that is something that you can absolutely do. But how would you configure a Cisco product? I mean, that is something, you know, I do not have an ISO to basically talk about it. So I cannot show you that functionality. So if you want to learn from the VMware point of view, I can give you that information. But if you would like to learn specifically from the nitty-gritty of the Cisco on how to configure it, how to go about it, how to get the ISO, then I'm not the right person. Reach out to the sales team of CDP. They might have someone from the Cisco department who can assist you. Okay, now let's move on. So now let me talk about VMware. Let's talk about that, why VMware is important. why you should be using VMware. Okay, let's talk about that scenario. So think about it. Let's say the year is 2004. Okay, which is in this year you basically had physical servers. There was no virtualization which was available. Okay, so in 2004, if you were in 2004, so basically anything that you had to do in your data center, any deployment that you had to do, any Windows machine or Linux machine that you had to deploy, anything that you had to do, you wanted a physical server. I mean, that's the only option that was available back then. Okay. Now, if you are running a complete physical environment, there are some issues that you will run into. What are those issues that you will run into if you are running a complete physical environment? Let me answer that question for you. Okay. So let's say I'm in year 2004, and let's say that I am running all dedicated physical environment. There is nothing virtualization because virtualization did not exist in 2004. It was at a very early stages, so it wasn't there for every customer. Now, what would happen is in environments, you would generally have a development environment and you would have a production environment. Now, depending on your client, you might have a QA environment, you might have a pre-prod environment. It depends on, what kind of environment that you have. So let's say I work for a client wherein I've got three environments. I've got a development, I've got a QA, and I've got a production environment. Okay. Now, what would happen is in an organization, you have a lot of applications. Okay, you've got hundreds of applications depending on how big your client is. Now, to keep the example simple right now, let's say I've got a application ABC. Okay, and this ABC application requires Nginx as a web server, and it also requires a database. Let's say MySQL. Okay, this is what my application needs. So what I will do is, if I have to test out my application in development, I need to have a physical hardware for it, right? So what I would have to do, I will have to basically buy a HP server, Dell server, or some server I would have to buy. I would have to buy a similar server for my QA environment. And then of course, I would have a server for my production environment. So for one application, I basically have three physical boxes. Now, these physical boxes might be in different environments, but I cannot have a different configuration. I need to have the same configuration. So if I have basically 32 GB RAM, which is running in the production, I need to have similar 32 GB RAM over here as well. And I need to have similar 32 GB RAM over here in the development as well. Because if you have a different hardware with different hardware specifications, there is no point of keeping, three different environments. Because you cannot be running 8 GB RAM over here, you cannot run 16 GB RAM, and then you cannot run 32 GB RAM. And then end of the day, you would expect the same results to come up. I mean, that's not going to happen. If you make changes in the hardware, there will be high chances that you might have a different result. Okay. So if you have an application, you will basically start off the testing in the development. You would see that you know how things work. Then you will push out the same changes on the QA. You will see that you know how things work. And then finally, you will push the changes on the production because you've already tested it a couple of times. So you are absolutely sure that things work on development and QA, and in production, you are basically now very confident in pushing out the changes. So this is a general setup that you will have wherein you are basically pushing out a lot of changes, and you would be going ahead with one hardware at a time. Now the issue is this is for one application. You've got three physical boxes. Okay. Think about it. If you have a lot of applications, you will have to buy a lot of physical servers. Okay. When you buy a lot of physical servers, there are a lot of challenges that you will run into. Now, what are those challenges? Let me answer that question. The first challenge that you will run into is the CapEx. What is CapEx? If you have to buy a server, you will pick up your phone and you will call up HP and you will tell HP, I need a server. HP will say, fine, fair enough, I will get you a server. But who is going to pay for it? You are not going to pay from your salary. I'm not going to pay from my salary. It has to come from an IT budget. And then that IT budget, I mean, end of the day, it is company who is paying for that hardware. So the first important issue in maintaining a physical environment is about capex. Who is going to pay for that physical box? Okay. The second problem that you will run into is OpEx. What is OpEx? It is operational expenditure. Okay. If you buy a Ferrari, it's great, but you have to maintain a Ferrari also. The maintaining something also costs money. So when you buy so many physical servers, who is going to manage it? If you have, for example, 10,000 physical boxes, you need a lot of people, to manage 10,000 physical boxes. You need data center because you cannot keep 10,000 physical boxes in your office or in your home. You need to basically have a data center. There you are going to place all your servers. You need to pay that data center guy because they are going to maintain electricity, cooling, bandwidth, security, audit. So you have to pay the data center guy. So end of the day, operational expense will be huge because there are a lot of charges that you will have to pay. The third thing is about utilization. What is utilization? So for example, if I open up my task manager over here on my machine, you would see that my utilization over here is 2% of CPU. I'm using 2% or maybe 5% of RAM. Okay. Similarly would be the case on your development boxes as well. When you have a physical machine, you are not running 24 into 7. There is something called as a peak time and there's something called as an off time when the server is not running at its full capacity. So you might have a server wherein it is getting utilized from 9 in the morning till 5 in the evening. But what about from 5 in the evening till 9 in the morning next day? Who is utilizing the server? Nobody else is utilizing the server. So the utilization of the server is very low. When you bought that hardware, you did not have an intention of using only 4% of RAM or only 0% of the CPU. This was not your intention. You want to use your CPU. You want to use your RAM that you have, bought this hardware. You at least want 60, you at least want CPU utilization to be around 60% or 70%. You don't want to touch 100%. I agree. But you at least want, there should be some utilization of the CPU. Similarly, is the case with memory. You don't want memory to be running at 5%. You want the memory utilization to be at least 70, 80%. You want your hardware resources to be utilized. Okay. Now, the sad part with a physical box is you cannot swap out the resources. If you have a physical machine, there is no way that you can take out a memory card and put it on a different machine and then keep swapping the CPU or keep swapping the memory. That is something that you cannot do. A physical box comes with certain amount of resources that always stay on that hardware. They do not basically get moved to a different hardware. Okay. So if you are not utilizing your resources on a physical hardware, they cannot be used with any other hardware. There is nothing that you can do about it to get that utilization up. End of the day, it is the application of yours who is utilizing the hardware resources. If the application is not utilizing resources, there is nothing that we can do about it. Okay. The next issue that you will run into is basically lifecycle manager. What is lifecycle manager? So for example, if you bought a server in 2017 from HP, okay, we are in 2024 now. You call up HP and you tell them that Microsoft has basically released an operating system 2022. I want to install 2022 operating system on this hardware that I bought from you in 2017. Give me drivers and give me firmwares. HP will say, sorry, I cannot give you firmwares and drivers for this operating system 2022. You would say, why? Because HP will say, this server that you have is end of life. Basically, whenever you buy any hardware, it has a maximum lifespan of 5 years. After 5 years, you need to throw away that box and get a new one. This is how, the industry is. This is how everyone makes money. You cannot be running a physical hardware for ages. I mean, you will not get support. HP will not give you drivers and firmwares, and you would not be running your production environment on an unsupported box. Okay, you will be running everything which is unsupported. So after 5 years, HP will say your hardware is end of life, throw it and get a new one. Now, when you have to dispose this hardware, you are not going to get money. You would have seen that, if you give something old, if you go to a pawn shop, you basically give something and, they give you money. Okay. Over here with the server, it's not the case. When you have to throw away your physical boxes, you are paying for it. You are not getting anything in return. Be absolutely sure about it. Okay. I know this because I did an activity in the data center and where we had to throw a lot of physical boxes. And then we had to reach out to a disposal vendor, a proper guy who can dispose the hardware for you, an ISO certified organization. You will reach out to them and they will basically, dispose your hardware. Okay. And then they will give you a receipt that, we took so much money from you. These are the hardwares that we basically disposed. And this is the receipt or the mail from them. You will basically show to your auditor, because when your IT is getting audited, you need to tell the auditor that what did you do about the old boxes. You just cannot tell the auditor, I kept them near a dustbin and someone took them. I mean, that's not the way you dispose of hardware. Okay. In an organization, you need to have a proper vendor and you are again paying for it. Okay. So lifecycle manager is an activity wherein every 5 years you will have to basically throw away your old boxes and get new ones in. It might sound very interesting, that you are throwing away the old box and getting a new one in, but trust me, it gets monotonous. You do it once, you do it twice, you do it 10 times, and then the 11th time you will start hating it. I mean, what monotonous job you are doing. Okay. The next issue that you will have if you are running a complete physical environment is faster provisioning. There is no faster provisioning. What does that mean? I need a server right now. I need to deploy an operating system right now. Get me a hardware. You call up HP and you tell HP, okay, I'm paying with my credit card. That's okay. You charge me right now, but how soon can you send me the hardware? HP will say at least a week, at least 2 weeks, at least 3 weeks. Nothing before that. So if you need to provision something right now, you cannot do on a physical environment. You need to have something in spare, then only you will be able to do it. If you do not have anything in spare, or if you are ordering something, ordering will take some time. It's not something that you call up right now and in next hour HP will be there at your doorstep with a new server. That's not going to happen. They will take at least 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So if you are running a physical environment, you just cannot provision anything right now. Okay. Then the other issue that you will run into is downtime issues. So for example, you have a physical box that goes down. What would you do? You will call up HP. You will tell them, hey, HP, I had two hard drives over here. Both of them have failed. I've got two power supplies over here. Both of them have failed. I need to get them replaced. HP will say, okay, let me look up your contract. Then HP will send an engineer depending on the kind of contract you have. Let's say that you have an immediate contract. I mean, you have a next business day, or you have a critical contract with them. Then also HP will take minimum of 4 hours, because depending on where your data center is, depending on uh, you know whichever guy they will schedule, he will have to pick up the part and come to your data center. This will take some time. This is not done in a minute, or this is not done within 15 minutes. The HP's guy is not standing outside your data center, with all the components, thinking that, you will give a call, I need to just rush in. So if you call up HP, no matter the kind of contract you have, you will have to wait minimum of 4 hours. So if you have a downtime in a physical environment, you have to wait for it. Okay. So these are few challenges that you will run into if you are running a physical environment only. Okay. Now, what is the solution to all these problems that I've highlighted over here? The solution is simple. What is the solution? Hypervisor. To all these solutions, to all these problems over here, the simple solution is a hypervisor. Now, what is a hypervisor? Okay, let me answer that question now. So for example, when you buy a server from HP or from any other organization, on that server, you basically have a hard drive. Let's say that you have a hard drive on the server. Okay. Now, what do? You basically install the operating system. So for example, you would have Windows or you would have a Linux operating system. And what do? You basically install the operating system directly on the hardware. This is what you will do. Okay. Now, once you have installed the operating system on this hardware, so you are running basically Windows over here now. You're not running anything else. You're only running Windows for now. Okay. Now the question comes over here. What if all the challenges that we were talking about, the same challenges will be applicable over here as well? Okay. So over here, you are running one single operating system, one hard drive, one operating system, one Windows, and that's about it. There is nothing else. Okay. What hypervisor will do? Hypervisor basically means that a hypervisor can be an operating system or it can be an application. Okay, a hypervisor can be an operating system or it can be an application that you deploy directly on the hardware. So for example, you have an HP server and here you've got the hard drive. Now what you will do, you will install the operating system directly on the hard drive. Like for example, if you have an HP server and if I ask you to install Windows on it, you will simply map the ISO and begin with the installation. Okay. You are not going to download a third-party bootloader. You're not going to, make some customizations and then you will install Windows. You don't have to. Why? Because Windows is a complete operating system. You are installing directly on the hard drive. Similarly would be the case over here as well. So over here, the hypervisor, you would install directly on the hard drive. Okay. And then the hypervisor will give you the capability wherein you can run multiple operating systems. So on one hardware, you could have Ubuntu, you could have Fedora, you could have Windows 2012, you could have Windows 2019, and you could have Red Hat 9. So on one hardware, hypervisor gives me the capability that I can run multiple operating systems, and all these operating systems are not impacting one another. Everyone is running as if they were the only ones, running on this hardware. So this is something that a hypervisor can do for me. So officially, hypervisor is an application or an operating system which can run multiple operating systems on your hardware. This is what a hypervisor is. So you could have Windows XP, Windows 7, Red Hat, Ubuntu, Fedora, Windows Server, whatever the operating system is, which supports x86 architecture. You could basically install that operating system over here. Okay. Any questions on the term hypervisor or any questions so far? If you have any, let me know.
I have a question. So,
Go for it.
the hypervisor you mentioned. So, it is a product of particular company, or it is in general what we are talking about is being
It
given.
is a generic term. For example, what is cloud? Cloud is a generic term. Now, cloud is given by HP, AWS, Google, Microsoft. Everyone is giving cloud services, but cloud itself is only a term. Okay. Similarly, is the case with hypervisor. Hypervisor is only a term. Okay. And everyone is basically selling a hypervisor. Microsoft, Citrix, Nutanix, VMware, Red Hat, Promox. Everyone is selling a hypervisor.
So
So
the Microsoft is Hyper-V, VMware is EXi, and I think Citrix is Zen server they are selling.
correct,
Even
correct,
Red Hat is also using a Zen as well.
correct. So there are a lot of hypervisors which are available in the market. But a hypervisor is only a term. So for example, car. What is car? Car is only a term. And there are so many companies, who are selling cars. So think about it in this way.
Okay.
Go for it, Hussam. You have raised your hand,
Uh,
buddy.
yes, your example about the OS, how to install it on the hypervisor is clear enough. But what about the application? I didn't got it well.
Correct.
How can we install the application in hypervisors?
Sure. Just give me 5 minutes and I will answer that question.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. Thank
Just
you.
give me 5 minutes. I'll be on that topic and then
Yeah.
I'll talk about it.
So,
Thank you in
yep.
advance.
So again, the next question from my end. Yes, the hypervisor, as you mentioned, it is a generic term. Every other company is building their own. Okay.
Mhm.
And during the session, you have mentioned the hypervisor is an application or OS. So if we take it as an OS, because on the bare metal, you mentioned that in a type 1, it's a bare metal, and we are placing that, or we are configuring the hypervisor directly on that server, physical server.
Correct.
At the moment. Okay. So this hypervisor is considered as an OS or just an application, because application needs an
It's
OS.
both.
It's
It is
both.
both.
Okay.
Give me 5 minutes. I'll answer your question. Okay. I'll just come to this. Just give me 5 minutes, buddy. Okay. Now there's a question on the chat. Is it enough if I install VMware vSphere Essentials kits for learning purposes? Yes. Hello. To my understanding, VMware Broadcom can be purchased to leverage or let's say avoid resources such as physical environment like setting up networking infrastructure which contains servers or let's say a server room. End of the day, I mean, if you have to build your own data center, then yes, you will have to buy the hardware. Okay. If you want to run everything on the cloud, for example, you want to leverage VMware on AWS or VMware on Google, then you don't have to buy the hardware. Then you are paying a fee over there, depending on monthly, yearly, or 3 year or whatever the commit is. You're basically paying a fee over there. So it depends on you that where you're setting up the environment. If you want to have everything under your control, like I mentioned, people generally have their on-premises data center and then they also leverage cloud. So if you want to leverage both the things, I mean, you can absolutely do that. But if you are building your on-premises environment, then yes, buddy, you have to buy the hardware. Okay. Now let's move on. So I spoke about the term hypervisor. Now we understand the term hypervisor basically means that it gives you the flexibility to run multiple operating systems on one physical box. Now, hypervisor can be of two types. There is something called as the type 1 and there is something called as a type 2. Okay. Now, let me give you another example. Let's say there is a, there is a Ramadan sale going on. I mean, Ramadan is about to come up. And let's say there is an offer going on from Dell. And Dell says that, during Ramadan, what we are going to do is I am going to give you a laptop without operating system at a very low price. No operating system, but you can have a laptop at a very discounted price during Ramadan. A very good deal. So let's say I go ahead and I buy a laptop. It does not have an operating system. That's okay. But at least I have a good hardware configuration from Dell. Now, let's say I have a Windows 10 license with me. Okay. So what I will do is I will take the Windows 10 operating system and I will make a bootable USD because nowadays in laptops, there is no CD drive. Okay, you will have a USB, but you will not have a CD drive. So what you will do is you will take the Windows 10 ISO and you will make it a bootable USB, for example. Okay. Now, what would happen is the laptop that you have from Dell, here you will plug the USB and you will start the Windows 10 installation. Now, when you are installing Windows 10, you are basically installing it directly on the hard drive. On this laptop, there was nothing on the hard drive and you installed directly Windows 10 ISO on the hard drive. Why? Because Windows 10 is a complete operating system. Windows 10 does not need anything external to get installed. It has all the capabilities that you can think of. Okay. Similarly is the case with a type 1 hypervisor. So a type 1 hypervisor is a complete operating system, and you get an ISO file. I mean, nowadays you will not get a CD or a DVD, those days are gone. So you will get an ISO. And what you have to do is, when you have an HP server, on this HP server, you will mount the ISO and install directly. The way you were installing Windows 10 on that laptop directly, similarly, a type 1 hypervisor will get installed on the hardware directly. This is what you will do. So this is what a type 1 hypervisor is. It is a complete operating system, complete ISO that you map directly on the hardware, and then you install it. Doubts, confusion, question on this point? If anyone has, let me know. Okay. Now, let's talk about type 2. Type 2, okay, so let me give you an example. So let's say this laptop that I bought, on this laptop, I installed Windows 10, okay, and everything is working fine. Now, let's say I want to watch a movie, okay, and I have a movie file, and I want an application, on my Windows 10 to watch a movie. So you would say that, there are so many applications out there, on which you can watch a movie. One of the applications is a VLC media player. Okay, this can basically play a lot of movies for you in whichever format, you would be able to play a movie. Now, what is VLC? VLC is an application. To install VLC, you need Windows 10. VLC cannot get installed on the hard drive directly if you do not have an operating system. So VLC is an application which will get installed on Windows 10, and then you can watch a movie. Similarly is the case with a type 2 hypervisor. So a type 2 hypervisor is an application. It is not a complete operating system, it is an application. To install this application, you need an operating system. So you need Windows or a Linux, okay? And then you would be basically be able to create multiple virtual machines, okay? Let me show you both the architectures now so that you understand better. So let's say this is your physical machine, okay? On this physical machine, you absolutely have nothing. This is absolutely raw server, with hard drive has nothing on it. Now what you do is, on this raw server, you install ESXi. What is ESXi? ESXi is a type 1 hypervisor. It is a complete operating system given by VMware. Okay. I install the type 1 hypervisor directly on the hardware. Now what will I do? I will basically now go ahead and create a virtual machine. When I create a virtual machine, it has its own operating system. It has its own application. I will create a second virtual machine. Here it will have its own operating system, and here it will have its own application. So when you install the operating system, you will do the networking, and then you can take an RDP, you can take an SSH, install Nginx, install SQL, install any other application that you want, you can do that. This is how you would be installing the application. Buddy, is it okay with you? The question that you had asked earlier. Sorry, I forgot your name. Husan, was it? Or I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Husan.
yeah, Hussam. Yes, Hussam. Yes,
Is it
got
okay
it.
with you, buddy?
Yeah, clear enough.
Okay, cool. Now, this architecture is basically called type 1 hypervisor. So this is the architecture for a type 1 hypervisor. Okay. Let me talk about a type 2 hypervisor. So in a type 2 hypervisor, what would basically happen is you have a physical machine. So you got a server from HP, Dell, IBM somewhere. Okay. Now what you will do is you will install an operating system over here. For example, you installed Windows 10. Okay. Now you will have to install a type 2 hypervisor, so which is basically an application. So you will now install a type 2 hypervisor, which is VMware Workstation. Okay. And then you would be going ahead and setting up virtual machines over here. VM01, own operating system, own application. VM02, own operating system, its own application. this is what you will do, and this is a type 2 hypervisor. A type 2 hypervisor is good for lab, personal learning, testing and R&D. This is something, type 2 hypervisor is good. But when you're running your production, always type 1. In enterprises, always type 1. So this is what the two kinds of hypervisors are. Doubt, confusion, question.
Okay. I have a question
Mhm,
in comparison with type 1 and type 2. So, as
mhm.
far as I see, the type 1 is more means with a single less number of OS on it, so its performance will be enhanced, right? Compared to type 2.
Correct. In type 2, you cannot expect performance. This is why I mentioned this is only for lab testing, R&D purposes. And in production, always a type.
Okay. So you mean to say in the real scenario where the companies are or the organization are using this
Always type
virtualization,
1.
always go for type 1.
Always.
Yep.
In lab, it is always a type 2. You can run a type 1 also in lab, but generally, this is more cost effective, a type 2.
Okay. And what if they want to go with the type 2 then their performance will be little.
No, I mean, you would not do that. I mean, any company would never run their production on a type 2. Okay.
Okay.
This is only for testing purposes. You don't run your production on type 2. You would always run it on type 1 only.
Okay.
Yeah. If you are working for a client who is running production in type 2 hypervisor, but you need to switch your job. You need to you need to work for a different company. Then this is what you need to do.
Yes.
Okay. So here is how it will all look like. Let me basically share a snippet with you. So this is how it basically all looks like. So this is your type 1 hypervisor. So in a type 1 hypervisor, you basically have the hardware. And then on top of that, you install your type 1 hypervisor directly over here. And then you create your VMs and your application and the operating system. And in a type 2, you basically install an operating system first, then a hypervisor, which is a type 2. And then you basically install your applications and the operating system. Okay. This is the way it basically looks like. Okay.
Excuse
So
me.
go for it.
Sorry for interrupting. As a sample for hypervisor type 2, we can observe, we can consider Hyper-V is type 2 hypervisor, Hyper-V.
This is a debatable question because few folks say that, initially you install Hyper-V and then when you reboot, it basically loads only Hyper-V. So it basically depends. I have never worked on Hyper-V. I mean, you could consider this as a type 2, but few folks tell me that, if you reboot Hyper-V, it then gets loaded again directly. So I think, you could say Hyper-V is a type 1. I would basically put it in that category.
Because I'm asking about that because we install Windows and then enable this Hyper-V features.
Mhm. And then if you
It's
reboot Windows, can you load Hyper-V directly or you have to load the
mm,
Windows operating system?
no. You have to load the Windows operating system first.
Then it would be a type 2 because I've never worked on Hyper-V. I had heard somewhere that you could load Hyper-V directly without loading the operating system. If that is not true, then then it will be a type 2.
Okay.
So you would
Yeah.
have to
Okay,
check with
thanks.
Microsoft maybe if there is a way to load Hyper-V directly. If they cannot,
Mhm.
if they have to load the operating system first and then the Hyper-V, then it'll be a type 2 basically.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
I
Michael,
would li-
uh,
my name is Michal. I would like to ask about Hyper-V. Okay, I checked something and I think that it's a hypervisor type first for hypervisor, but I'm not sure about Oracle VirtualBox. It's a type
it's a
2
type 2,
hypervisor? Yeah,
correct.
okay.
And so, for example, in VMware, you have got this VMware workstation, which is a type 2 hypervisor. You have got, this is VMware Workstation is for Windows and Linux. Okay. So for example, if you have a Mac operating system, then you can basically run Windows VMware Fusion. So VMware Fusion can give you a type 2 hypervisor capabilities. So there's an Oracle open box, virtual box, like you mentioned, that is also a type 2 hypervisor. So it basically depends on, which type 2
Thank you.
hypervisor you want to use.
Thank you very much for this information.
No problem.
As my understanding from your notes now, simply if you shut down the operating system and you cannot load this mesh hypervisor, means it's type 2. Simply.
Yeah, correct. You are right.
Thank you. Thank you.
So if you install something directly on the hard drive without the operating system, that is a type 1 hypervisor.
Yeah. Got it.
Cool. Now, there are few benefits of running a type 1 hypervisor. What are those benefits? Let me answer that question now. Okay. So let's take an example. You have a physical machine, and let's say this is an HP server or a Dell server that you have. And on this physical server, you basically install ESXi directly on top of it. Okay. So on this physical server that you had, so for example, you had 100 GB of RAM over here. You had some CPU over here. You had some network and you had some hard drive. Now on this physical box, you have installed ESXi directly on top of it. Now, ESXi basically controls these hardware resources. So ESXi is basically the owner of these hardware resources. Okay. Now, what would happen is on ESXi, you would be creating virtual machines. So what you will do, you will create a virtual machine VM01. You will install the operating system, and then you will install the application. Then similarly, you would create virtual machine 02, install some application and some operating system. Okay. Now the benefit of running a hypervisor is if there is an virtual machine which is not using its resources, ESXi will say that you do not want RAM, I will give RAM to you. If you want RAM, you come and tell me, I will give you the RAM. But I am not dedicating the resources for you. I am doing a sharing of resources. If you need something, you will get it. If you don't need something, that's fine. I will give it to someone else. Let me explain you in an example. So let's take an example. On this physical machine that I have, let's say I've got 100 GB of RAM over here. Okay. Now, what I will do, I will create first virtual machine, VM01. I will install some application and some operating system on it. And for example, I give 25 GB of RAM over here. I create a second virtual machine and I give 25 GB of RAM over here. I create a third virtual machine and I give 25 GB RAM over here. And I create fourth virtual machine and I give 25 GB RAM over here. So what I've done, I have 100 GB of RAM and I created 4 virtual machines and I gave 25 GB RAM to each one of them. My question is, can I create a fifth virtual machine and give 25 GB of RAM over here? Can I create a sixth virtual machine and give 25 GB RAM over here? What do you guys think? And can I power them on?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, anyone who says no, I cannot do that?
Sorry, I'm come again, but I think you mean when you exceeded the resources.
So what I'm saying over here is, buddy, that I have 100 GB of RAM. Okay, I created 4 virtual machines: VM1, VM2, VM3, VM4. Every virtual machine has 25 GB of RAM on it.
Yeah, you can't create it.
I can create it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, anyone who thinks I cannot create a fifth virtual machine or a sixth virtual machine. Okay, so we would be able to create
it, but you cannot power it on.
I will be able to create it. I will be able to power it on also. Because what would happen is you will have the concept of sharing. So what it means is the 25 GB RAM that I've given to a virtual machine, this is allocated VM. This is allocated RAM. I mean, this is the total amount of RAM you have that you can use. But you might not be using entire 25 GB of RAM. No, you might be only using 10 GB of RAM. Here you might be only using 15 GB of RAM. Here you might be using only 7 GB of RAM. Here and you might be using only 8 GB of RAM. So if you are not using your resources, I will share the resource with any other VM. So this is basically called sharing of resources.
In this case, suppose the virtual machine is utilized in the totally whatever the allocated you have.
Upendra, your voice is not very clear. Can you come close to the mic? I cannot hear you well.
Yeah, sorry. Am I audible now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So as per my understanding, what you explained just now, I clearly understand. So, but whatever allocated RAM size is fully utilized for all the virtual machine,
Very
then we
good. I
can.
will come to this. Just give me 5 minutes. I will answer your question. Okay, buddy. Give me 5 minutes. Hey, Hussam, go for it, buddy. You have raised your hand.
Yeah. And I'm just answering this. My answer was in because we have use cases such as this when we exceed we work on VDC, Virtual Data Center, based on VMware. When I'm trying to create a new VM, when I exceed the resources limit, it's giving me error. I can't do this unless I powered off one of them. That I can do.
So
But I
that
don't know.
is because you are using VDC. VDC is a different functionality altogether. Okay. So you do not have the complete control. You have been given a
Okay.
limited control.
Yes.
That's the reason.
Fair enough.
Here the
Yes.
concept of the dedicated or our shared resources.
Because they control our assumed.
Correct.
You mean?
Correct.
Okay. But when I am the owner, I can go with this as a vMotion.
Yes.
You mean? Okay. Great.
Yes.
Great. Thanks.
My question is, here we can use a dedicated resource or shared resources. Any concept here?
Yeah. We will come to that dedicated resources later. Okay. Riansh, right now we are only focusing on the shared resources. Okay. So in this scenario, I was explaining you that if you are not using whatever is allocated to you, I will give that resources to any other virtual machines. So if I've given you 25 GB of RAM and you are only using 10 GB, so I will not hold that entire RAM to you. I will basically share the resource with any other VM and you will be able to create multiple virtual machines. This is what you can do. And this is what sharing of resources means. ESXi is the owner over here and ESXi can give the virtual machine the amount of RAM depending on the requirement. If you don't have a requirement, ESXi will say, okay, I will give the RAM to someone else. Okay. Now, let's talk about a different scenario. So let's take an example. You have a physical machine. On this physical machine, you have got 100 GB of RAM. On this physical machine, you install ESXi. Now, ESXi is the owner of the 100 GB RAM. Okay. Now, here what you do is you create multiple virtual machines. You create a VM01, VM02, VM03, VM04, and each virtual machine you give 25 GB of RAM. Now let's take a hypothetical scenario. All of them are using entire 25 GB of RAM. Everyone is using 100% of the RAM. Okay. Now my question to you is, can I create a fifth virtual machine with 25 GB of RAM and power it on? Can I create a sixth virtual machine with 25 GB RAM and power it on? What do you guys think?
You create it, but you cannot on the machine.
No, sir.
No,
Okay.
no.
Anyone says that yes, I can create a fifth virtual machine and a sixth virtual machine with 25 GB of RAM, and I can power them on also?
No, not power on.
Okay. The answer is yes, I can do this. Yes, I can create a fifth virtual machine with 25 GB RAM and I can power it on. Yes, I can create a sixth virtual machine with 25 GB RAM and power it on. I can do this. What will happen? Now, let's talk about it.
Okay, can I ask something? Because
Go
I'm
for
not
it.
sure. It depends on consumption or utilization of RAM, of memory. It depends on that only, on these things, or maybe it's something else.
Let me answer that question for you. Okay.
Yeah.
So here, we were talking about that you have got 4 virtual machines and they are using entire 100 GB of RAM. Fair enough. So this entire 100 GB of RAM is getting utilized. Now, you created 2 more virtual machines. You gave them 25 GB RAM and you powered on these machines. The operating system over here and the operating system over here, they need RAM. They will reach out to ESXi and they will tell ESXi, give me RAM. Because end of the day, ESXi is the owner of 100 GB RAM. So every virtual machine will reach out to ESXi and it will tell ESXi, give me RAM. ESXi will say, buddy, I do not have RAM. Sorry. But these virtual machines will say, no, I need RAM. These virtual machines will say, see, I have a requirement of RAM and you need to give me RAM. These operating systems will tell ESXi. And they will start putting pressure on the ESXi, give me RAM, give me RAM. Now from where will get ESXi will get RAM? My question is, how will ESXi get RAM? Because it only has 100 GB of RAM and this is already getting utilized. Okay. What will happen? You will run into a performance issue on all the 6 virtual machines, and every virtual machine of yours will start having a performance issue. My question was, can you create a fifth virtual machine? Can you create a sixth virtual machine? Technically, big yes. Technically, you can do this. But theoretically, should you do this? Big no. When you do not have RAM, you should not be creating additional virtual machines and you should not be powering it on. Again, technically, if you want to do this, VMware will not stop you. VMware will say that if you want to create a fifth VM or a sixth VM, you can do it. But it is your responsibility as a VMware admin. Should you do this? A big no, you should not do this. You get the point? Anyone has any questions? Okay, cool.
Yes.
So VMware would not stop you. If you want to create virtual machines, go for it. But you should not be doing it. In this scenario, every virtual machine over here will run into a performance issue. All the operating systems will basically have a lot of performance issues. Your RDP, your application, your SSH, everything will start acting up very slow and everything will freeze up for you. The operating system will freeze, the application will freeze. But yeah, you technically can power on. You can technically create more virtual machines, but theoretically you should not do. Okay, cool. Now let's talk about something else.
Yeah. So sorry, just here from your expertise,
Mhm.
we when we have to do this case in such scenario, if we plan to expand, then we nearby delivery and expand our GPs, or in which time we have to expand this more VMs before we have good enough resources. In which
So
cases? because I guess they are not make it applicable until there is a reason.
Correct. So what would basically happen is VMware says that you are managing your environment. I have given you the software, but how you want to manage, how you want to design, how you want to deploy the software, it is up to your wish. So VMware cannot control when you should power on a VM and when you should not power on a VM. Okay. VMware says that I, as a vendor, can give you best practices. I can tell you from my experience that what you should do and how you should maintain your environment. It's up to your wish whether you want to, take their suggestions seriously or whether you want to discard their suggestions. It's up to your wish. Okay. So VMware says in your environment, make sure nothing goes above 80%. So VMware says that there are only four main components in every environment: CPU, memory, network, hard drive. So VMware says that make sure that nothing should go above 80%. CPU should be below 80, memory should be below 80, network should be, the utilization should be below 80, and hard drive should be below 80. So VMware says that, keep a tab that nothing goes above 80% and you will be good. But if you want to go above 80, if you want to saturate your environment, technically you can do this. Why you will be doing it? I absolutely have no use case to tell you. You will never be doing this. Okay. Always keep your utilization around 80% and never go beyond it. Your environment will run very healthy. Your applications will be in a very perfect state. The day you start saturating your hardware resources, then you will start running into issues. Technically, you can saturate your resources, but theoretically, morally, please don't do that. This is what I wanted to explain you in the last scenario.
Okay, simple example, like a car, any car has a maximum of 280 speed, but
Correct, but you
for
don't
the rule
drive
of
at 280, no?
yeah. Actually, it's like that. Camera will catch you.
True, true.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
similar example, in India, you have got these small budget cars, very small cars. And, they have a speedometer of 140. If you
Yeah,
start driving those cars at 140, your car will basically literally shake. And you will be, at a point that whether this car will last or whether this
yeah,
will, get apart. So
yeah,
speedometer can show you whatever number, but you don't go to that speedometer. Okay. Your car
Exactly.
might not be, able to
yeah.
handle that kind of a pressure. So that is
Mhm.
how it is.
Good,
Very good example, buddy.
good.
Okay, cool. Now let me talk about a different topic now, a different term now. So there is a term, or before I tell you the term, let me explain you the scenario. So let's say I have a physical machine and it has 100 GB of RAM. On this 100 GB of RAM, you install ESXi directly on the hardware. So you've got a physical machine which has 100 GB of RAM and you install ESXi on it. Now you create virtual machines. So you create VM01 and you give 25 GB RAM. You create VM02, you give 25 GB RAM. You create VM03, you give 25 GB of RAM. And you create VM04 and you give 25 GB of RAM. Now you have RAM over here. This is called physical RAM. The RAM that you have on the hardware, that is called a physical RAM. The RAM that you have given to your virtual machines, this is called a virtual RAM because this is not a physical RAM. This is a virtual RAM. Okay. So now what would happen over here is you have given, for example, 100 GB of virtual RAM over. Okay. Now let's say your utilization is not that high. Okay. Let's say your utilization over here is 10 GB, 10 GB, 10 GB, and 10 GB. So you are basically utilizing only 40 GB RAM, though you have 100 GB RAM, but you are only utilizing 40 GB of RAM. So now what you can do, you can create one more virtual machine, and then you can create one more virtual machine. And then you give 25 GB RAM over here, and you give 25 GB RAM over here. Now what you have done is, you have allocated 150 GB of RAM. The virtual RAM that you have given to all your virtual machines, combined it together, you have given 150 GB of RAM, and you have only physical RAM 100 GB. This is called overcommitment. Okay. So overcommitment as a term, it means that you are over allocating the resources than what you have on your physical hardware. So on your physical hardware, you have 100 GB of RAM, but you have allocated 150 GB. This is overcommitment. Overcommitment happens in every environment. I have worked for clients huge in terms of revenue. Their revenue is billions of dollars, billions of euros. They are basically, making such a lot of money. If I talk about those clients, in their VMware environments, they also do overcommitment. So overcommitment is a very common thing to have in VMware environments. Why will you do overcommitment? Because you know that the VM that you are creating over here, the operating system that you have, the application that you have, will not consume entire 25 GB of RAM. Because think about it, if you consume entire 100% of CPU over here or 100% of memory over here, your operating system will basically freeze. It will choke. Your application will not perform well. So whatever resources you give to your operating system, you only use 70%, 80%, something all that sort. You don't use 100%, because if you use 100%, your operating system will freeze. Okay. That is why in VMware environments, it is very common to go for overcommitment. I am not saying that, blindly you go for too much of overcommitment. Don't do that. But whatever you have, you can absolutely do 1.5x of overcommitment. You can absolutely do. No concerns over there. It depends, end of the day, how much RAM that you have given to your virtual machines, what is the application, what is the utilization. So basically, there is no straight answer that I can tell you that, this is what the maximum should be. It depends on your environment to environment. Generally, 1.5x is good enough, but if you want to go higher, depends on your application utilization, you can even do that. Any questions on the term overcommitment over here?
I will only want to make sure that I understand correctly. Okay, we have 4 virtual machines and consumptions of RAM is 2 gigabytes per each. And if we add another 2 and we start it and we turn on, it means that they will work, or
They will
there
work.
will occur some problem.
No, they will work. There would be no problems. All that I'm
Okay.
saying is that you have physical RAM of 100 GB, but when you were creating virtual machines, the RAM that you allocated to them, it went above 100 GB, right? So this is called overcommitment.
Yeah, I get it.
So this is what I'm referring to, that in VMware, you can do overcommitment, and it is very common to do that. There is no problem over there.
Thank you very much for this information.
No problem.
If I have a question. So when we talk about the overcommitment, so it's a known, it's we can say it's a known issue where the performance
No,
issue
it's
will
not an
going to
issue.
arise.
It's not an issue. It's a common practice. The word
Okay.
should be common practice. It's a common practice that happens in VMware environments, that you overcommit because you know that your virtual machines will not be using entire 100% of the resources which is allocated to them.
So suppose if we get a ticket, or maybe we get a an update that this virtual machine is performing slow, or this two virtual machine is performing slow. So
Hmm.
the first step that the admin will check that VM, what we say, the utilization.
No. So when you talk
What
about,
will be the case?
okay, so when you say a VM is slow, okay, this is a very broad statement. Okay. End of the day, if you have a VM which is slow or which is not responding well, there could be only four reasons: CPU, memory, network, and hard drive. Because of one of the reasons, the application will be slow. You need to narrow down. There is a concept called a cone factor. So, like you have an ice cream cone, so you basically come at the bottom of the cone and you basically narrow down the issues. Where is the problem? Is the issue with CPU? No. So you take the CPU out. Is the issue with RAM? No, there is no problem with the RAM. Where is the machine slow? During boot up, application access, too many requests coming in, network is slow, hard drive is choking. You basically have to narrow down the issue. And then you can troubleshoot that, why your VM is slow. Okay. Overcommitment would not be a reason that why the VM is slow. Every VM has a different issue. Every VM has a specific issue. So you need to understand that what exactly is not working, narrow down the issue in troubleshooting, and then you will be able to get to pinpoint that what exactly is not working.
Okay, so coming, following to your answer. So up till now, what I have seen that the business or maybe the users just complain that we are having the application is working slow or the entire VDI is working slow. So then in that case, how we can go with the checks?
So when you say the application is working slow, the application needs to tell me what is slow for them. So you would have application logs. Okay.
Mhm.
When you run an application, like I was working with a customer and they were running an application. Now that application was basically taking, 2 minutes more to complete the operation. Okay. And earlier it was getting completed in 30 seconds. And now it was getting completed in, say, about, you know, uh, 200 seconds. Okay. So there was a too much of time taken by the application to complete the process. Now the question comes that why was it taking time? So when we were running the application, we found that the CPU utilization was shooting up very high. The RAM utilization, during this time was shooting very high. So what we did was we increased CPU, we increased RAM. After that, we ran the application and still it was high. We then checked the hard drive. How much is the hard drive supporting? After supporting or after increasing the hard drive or getting the better, giving it better IOPS or something, it was still, not, it basically came down. So from 200 seconds, it basically came down to around 70 seconds or something. But the customer was still not happy. He said, earlier it was taking 30 seconds, why 70 seconds? We then had to loop in the application team because application vendor team needs to pinpoint me that why is the application running slow. You need to understand troubleshooting is not only VMware's problem. If you
Mhm.
have to troubleshoot the environment, you have to involve everyone so that you can jointly troubleshoot an issue and understand what is not working. You can only look at the infrastructure point of view, but you are not a champion on application. So you need to get the application team involved and ask them specifically to check their logs and tell us what is wrong with their application. What is that application is not able to get, right? So there are
Mhm.
so many things, that you need to, work on. So troubleshooting is a very wide topic, and it's not someone's only responsibility. It's not only always the VMware's team responsibility to troubleshoot and get it up. You have to involve other team members as well. Okay. I hope
Okay.
that answers this question.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Anyone else has any questions for now?
I have one question, but is regarding the hardware.
Go
As
for it.
you say, as we said, we have some type 1 and type 2 hypervisor. Okay.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
in the introduction, you said the hardware has some limits. Okay. The 5 years warranty or something else. Okay.
mhm,
So in that case, when we are using something hardware, Okay.
Mhm.
And we can install the hypervisor as a type 1. So
Mhm.
that type also we are changing the hardware after 5 years.
Correct.
Okay. So how can we get, because we have some multiple VMs in our install in our system. So
You
in
will
that
not have
case,
only, you will not have Rianch only, you will not have only one ESXi in your environment. You will have multiple ESXis in your environment. So all the VMs which are running over here on this hardware, you move them to another hardware and then you replace the box, right?
okay.
You can live migrate the VMs, nobody. So you live migrate the VMs to another ESXi and then, you take this hardware down, replace it, change it, whatever you have to do, you can do that.
Yeah, but somehow the one machine have many VMs and there is no capacity to migrate.
Then this is an infrastructure issue, no? This is not a VMware issue. This is a gap on the VMware admin. This is a gap on the VMware team which is managing that environment. That why did they reach that situation? Why did not they highlight that situation to the management? Why was nothing done about it? See, if you create a problem for yourself, you cannot expect VMware to solve that problem for you, no? If you're driving a car at 200, going back to Husam's example, if you drive a car at 200 and police catches you, you cannot blame Ford for it, no? That Ford has given me 200 limit speed and I will drive it. I mean, Ford has given you some options, but you need to drive it properly, no? You cannot put the blame on the car manufacturer that it is their fault. I'm driving at 200. So
Okay,
VMware has given you environment. How you
and
manage
the
it, it is your responsibility.
okay, and the second question is what the like the physical hardware. Everywhere we can use the physical hardware, correct? Okay, and when we are install the hypervisor, and the hardware is crash as well.
Hmm.
At the moment,
At that moment also, then the VMs will move to the other available node. This is called high availability.
okay, is automobile facilities or something else we
Yes,
can do?
it will automatically move. You don't have to do anything. We will do the practical when we reach over there. I will
Okay,
show you how it works.
okay, okay.
I have a
So we
small
can create a
concern.
redundancies as well.
Yes. Go for it, Upendra.
Yes, yeah. Whenever any performance issues occur on the virtual machine, the operating system teams reach out to the VMware to verify the performance issues at VMware levels. So, what can we check in the VMware level?
So there are, like I mentioned, when your VM is slow, you can only look at four things: CPU, memory, network, and hard drive. If these four things are working well for you, then you need to troubleshoot from the application's point of view for the application what is not working. So for example, if you have Microsoft SQL is a very blunt application. It will clearly tell you that what is the problem. So for example, if your storage is not performing well and it is giving you a lot of latency, SQL as an application will write in the logs that the storage is very slow. The latency on the storage is very high, because of which I am not able to work. So you
Okay.
need to check from the application point of view what is wrong.
So for that, in terms of the application issue we're discussing, load balancer, where will it come? The four category you said: RAM, CPU, network. Say like
Network,
you need to check, it will come under network, yeah.
correct. You need to
Is
check
that
that
a,
what
is
kind
that
of
a
a load.
valid point? Is that a valid point to check load balance if this server is hitting so many users or logging, a lot of
So
customers logging now?
correct. So VMware has a load balancer which is called ALB. It is called Advanced Load Balancer, VMware Advanced Load Balancer. So what would happen
Oh,
is in that load balancer, it can show you exactly from where the request came, how much time it took, when it reached the load balancer, when it reached the backend server, when the backend server responded, and when it reached to the end user. It can show you latency at every hop, that where it was taking time. Which part of the communication is consuming time, this load balancer can exactly show you in graphs, in UI, in charts, it can show you that. So you need to have a load balancer which should have a capability of pinpointing where the problem is. I am not expecting the load balancer to solve the problem for me, but at least it should have the capability to pinpoint the problem where it is. So VMware's advanced load balancer, you should check it out. It can do that. So you will have to basically troubleshoot and understand from the load balancer's point of view that
Mm.
which server is responding slow, because in load balancer you could have a policy of round robin. So one of the backend servers might be slow, all the others are running well. So you would have to troubleshoot and look at that, what is responding slow. Check each connection, check each backend. I mean, troubleshooting is not something that that can be sorted out in 15 minutes or 20 minutes. You have to give time, you have to dedicate, you have to troubleshoot, analyze,
Mm.
and then you can come to a conclusion.
So that is on the networking tab here, on the load balancing, round robin.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
It's
it
not
depends,
separate
no? I mean,
appliance.
no, yeah, it's a separate appliance. I mean, VMware has a different, separate product altogether called
Okay.
VMware Advanced Load Balancer. You deploy it, configure it, you have to pay for it. It's a 5 days of training that you have to take. Different product altogether.
Thanks for highlighting that.
No problem. Hey, Husam, go for it, buddy.
Yeah, actually, I heard you mention IOPS. I don't know either it's early to ask now. You will come over it later, or
When
we
we will
have
reach
to.
the storage section, then we will talk more about that, what an IOPS
Yeah,
is
yeah,
and how you can check the performance,
yeah.
what are
Mhm.
the different
Okay,
tiers, and we'll talk more
okay.
over there.
Yeah, yeah, no issues because it's one of critical. I don't understand it well, so let's wait for tomorrow. No worries.
Yeah, it's not, it will not be tomorrow, buddy, even. When we reach the storage section,
Later. Okay,
then,
yeah,
yeah,
later.
then I will talk more about it.
Yeah, thanks, thanks. But may I ask, not technical question, how many days we are starting today, I think. How many
Correct.
days we remaining?
So it basically is 7 weekends.
Uh, okay.
7 weekend means basically 14 classes. Sometimes it can go to 15 classes also, depending on, uh,
Mm.
how quickly or how we are progressing, because every batch is different. So depending
Mm,
on, generally it would take around 14 to 15 classes, 7 to 8 weekends to complete the batch.
okay, thanks.
No problem.
And this is demo, right? And then anyone who wants to still register can
Correct. So
register.
what we are doing over here is, in this class, this is free for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, it will be a paid class. So the first 4 classes, we'll be talking about it as our course is going. And after that, you would have to reach out to the sales team to get the next Zoom invite.
And the time is for the demo is four sessions.
It will be the same. So we'll basically start at, I don't know in which country you are. So in India time, we are starting at 5:30 and we will finish at 7:30. Okay. When we go for the paid session, then we will basically stretch it till 8:30. So this is what we'll do. So we'll have three hours of classes.
What time is there now in India, if you don't mind, based on UK? I'm just checking.
It's 7:35. This is the time in India.
Morning, okay. And there's 3 more sessions left.
Correct.
And the time is the same.
Correct.
And weekends, yeah? Saturdays.
Yes.
Okay,
Hello.
thanks.
Yeah, go for it, buddy.
Yeah, my name is Riaz. I'm founder of CDP. So
hey, Riaz, go for it.
Yeah, complimentary, we are giving one recorded session to this batch, to the VMware vSphere 8.0. Either you can get a recorded video of AWS Solution Architect or Palo Alto, or you can check on CCNA also. So once the demo is over, you can please contact our sales team. So they will give your offer also. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right,
so
everyone.
one last question before you move to this topic.
Go for
in
it.
terms of, say, for a CPU utilization or whatnot, if you have a cluster of, say, 6 or 7 hosts, and you want to manage your resources or RAM or CPU, is there an area that you can check it overall, the whole cluster level?
So at a cluster level, you have a functionality called DRS.
Okay.
So DRS will make sure that any virtual machine which was not able to get required amount of CPU and memory, it will automatically get moved to another physical box. So DRS will basically
as long you set up that rule, right? You have to set up before.
No, you don't have to set up a rule. You just need to basically enable this functionality.
Okay.
Just enable the functionality. Once you enable the functionality, and that should be it. Okay, how it works, what is the function of DRS, what are the different modes, the threshold level. We'll talk about everything. We'll talk about in depth what DRS is.
Thanks.
No problem. Diaz, if you're there with me on the call, there is a question on sales team contact number.
I will
there's-
share in the VMware group, WhatsApp group. Everything I will share.
Cool. Thank you. So Ambadas, I think that answers your question over there.
We'll meet up tomorrow same time.
Right. So everyone, let's meet tomorrow and let's continue tomorrow the same time. And we'll continue from here, whatever we have done today. So we'll talk about the next topics tomorrow.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
No problem,
Thank
buddy.
you for your
Thank
time.
you. Thank you,
Thank you.
somebody. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.